You know what's crazy? I can't believe I spent $5,225 on GPUs this generation and ended up with the AMD 7900 XTX. Now, trust me guys, it was an interesting experience over the last, like what was it, like year and a half, or yeah, it's almost been a year and a half since I started off with NVIDIA, like most people probably do. And then, like the 3080 10 gig or whatever, and then the new cards came out. I was feeling a little bit left behind with NVIDIA, like they had the whole new frame generation, they had everything else, coming out for those cards, and they were just kind of leaving the 30 series in the dust. And I was like, gosh dang, dude, that does not seem very, very cool. Like I was bitter, I was messed up, man. So I went out and I bought a 7900 XT, and I was like, whoa, this thing is awesome. And it's got all these like cool features and stuff that like nobody seems to care. Well, they say they don't care about, but I guarantee it. If you bought like an AMD GPU and you got in there and you started like, seriously, if you go from like any card, like an NVIDIA or something like that, and you go over to like a much higher end, like there was the second highest card in the AMD stack when I bought the 7900 XT. The 7800 XT didn't even exist yet. And so I bought that card, the 7900 XT, and I was like, oh my gosh, dude, I was absolutely blown away from the moment I started using AMD. I automatically was like, wow, dude, I get like better colors, I get like a better image quality, stuff like that. And yes, I had, went in there and used like NVIDIA's, like full color, and set the colors right, and turned on like digital vibrance and all of that stuff. There's just, for me, it's one of those things where like the digital vibrance just doesn't do the saturation of colors as good as the AMD side does for me. Other than that, like I was just like, oh man, I swear to this day I can still see it. But it was weird. It was things like that, just like little subtleties that I would see, and I would be like, wow, this is incredible. And then the 7800 XT came out. They announced that, and I was like, you know what, man, I want to try that. So I went out and I bought the 7800 XT, and I was like playing around with that, and I put that in there, and I used that for like a whole month or whatever. I was trying out a whole bunch of games and stuff on that, and I was like, wow, this is actually really good on a 1440p monitor. I was like, wow, I got 16 gigs of VRAM. I'm getting, a pretty dang comparable experience, 1440p to what the 7900 XT was giving me. At that time, I was still rocking AM4, the 5900X. So I was playing around with that, and I was having a good time. You got to understand, I came from consoles, a year prior. So I'm sitting here and I'm just like, I'm absolutely blown away no matter what I'm playing on the PC, because it's significantly better than what I was getting on the console. Well, at that point, I decided, all right, you know what? I've been sitting here, I've been giving NVIDIA a hard time because of the 3080 10 gig and them skimping out on features and all of that kind of stuff. So let's give the 4070 a try. So I went and bought a 4070. Overall, it was a pretty good card. It was pretty close, the 7800 XT and the 4070, pretty close in comparison and stuff. I just didn't feel like, the reasons that you would buy an NVIDIA GPU, like for the ray tracing and the DLSS and all of that was like that big of a deal compared to what I was already getting with the 7800 XT. I was just like, dude, this is like, I just kind of felt like, man, they like oversell these features, because when you try to utilize, like a 12 gigabyte buffer or something like that, and you're trying to, if you're buying a 4070, and see, this is where I think people get it kind of confused, is when you've got Digital Foundry out there saying, oh yeah, man, you get a way better 4K image quality with a 4070 over like a PlayStation 5, that intrinsically puts that in people's minds that the 4070 is a 4K card. It can do it. All you got to do is use DLSS, and then you do that. And man, and see, that was kind of the thing that happened to me, is like when you start doing that, when you start pushing, because DLSS is awesome. DLSS is freaking awesome, especially if you're trying to do like 4K or whatever. If 4K is like your main goal, DLSS is awesome, but it is like your 7800 XT is going to do 4K, you know, a little bit better, you know, just due to the higher VRAM buffer or whatever. But you're gonna be stuck with like FSR. And let's just be honest, man. FSR is hit and miss. Like sometimes it's really, really good. Like you got God of War Ragnarok, it looks incredible in. Horizon Forbidden West looks great in that too. But if you're going for 4K, you're gonna have to buy like 7900 XTX, 7900 XT, so that you can get a better overall 4K experience, at least on some of these newer games and stuff. Some of the older stuff you can usually hit like native 4K on like anything from 360 and, you know, early, you know, Xbox One, PlayStation 4 generation, you can usually get, you know, pretty close to like native 4K at good playable frame rates, at least in my testing with a bunch of these games and stuff. But it's when you start trying to use these cards as like 4K cards for newer games is when things really start to fall apart. So I didn't really like the 4070 all that much. I just kind of felt like the 7800 XT was a better build overall, and that was kind of where my testing led me this whole generation, you know, doing like that. So then they launched the 7600 XT with 16 gigs of VRAM. So I go out and I buy that card and I test that one out. So now I'm at the low end of the AMD stack testing that out. I didn't do a 4060 or anything like that because I had already previously had a 3060 Ti, so I just kind of felt like I've already tried the low end of an NVIDIA GPU, so I wanted to test out the AMD. And to tell you the truth, at 1080p, you know, a little bit of 1440p, that was actually a fairly decent card. Like I could definitely see people going into PC gaming looking for a budget build that's gonna give you, you know, 1080p, entry level 1440p, good, decent quality, enough VRAM to back it up. I kind of felt like that was a pretty decent card overall. So, I mean, if you're using like a 4060 Ti, 16 gigs, you know, and like the 70, those cards are probably pretty decent. That's probably where I would recommend, you know, getting in if you're like really budget constrained, is probably those two cards. If you need the DLSS or anything like that, obviously pick up the NVIDIA GPU. I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend that FSR is better than DLSS. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that DLSS is perfect on everything. Like I'm not going to do that. Like you come here for honest, real, like content, that's what you're getting from now on, is just honest, real content. If you're looking in that lower class, definitely those are the cards. But guys, then we get to the last few months of my little PC journey of what's best for Frog Boy, what's going to make me happy, and what is going to power my gaming sessions, you know, going forward and stuff. And for right now, like what is the best thing for me right now? Because I'm recording this video on the 4090 money. Like the 4090 bought the Sony FX30 and the Sigma 16mm lens that I've been powering the channel with. I spent over $2,400 on this camera setup. So I'm okay taking a freaking, you know, and like either the 4080 Super or the 7900 XTX. I bought both of them and I tested both of them, and I just came back to like the same thing. And it's crazy, guys. And I know you guys say I keep making these videos all the time, but here's the thing, like the 4080 Super, not a bad card at all. It did fine on 4K. I was having fun. You know, like the ray tracing was pretty good with it and stuff like that. Not even that, like it wasn't a bad card at all. It was fine. I would have been just happy with that 4080 Super. But when I started really, so every time I would put the 4080 Super back in, I would miss that AMD experience. Because AMD grew on me like really fast. Like the Adrenaline software, just the overall better performance that I get from, like, you know, the games that I like to play. I play a lot of open world games, and I kind of feel like that wider bus or you know, like the more amount of VRAM and stuff like that. Because when I'm playing these games, it'll be like up to like 15, 16, you know, up to 17, 18 gigs of VRAM used on the AMD card, but then it's always less on the NVIDIA card. And I don't know, man. Like I feel like I'm getting a better, smoother overall experience. And I kind of like the way, I don't know. I mean, I guess if NVIDIA's app came out and it was as versatile as you get with the Adrenaline software. Let me show you guys the Adrenaline software. Let me see if I could just pull it up here, and I'll kind of like film the screen for you guys. But let me just kind of show you guys this a little bit. You know, let me just put some of this in the video for you. Let's see if I can get it to focus on that. Boop. So there's just a lot of different things. Let me make this smaller. Honestly, maybe I can adjust it just a little bit more. Boop. So it just kind of fills out the screen a little more. Just make this. I just wanted to show you guys some of this, man. I know. You guys get some of this stuff all the time. Let me just go ahead and boop, point at that. So we're using the FX30 to do this. So you get like the home thing. This pretty much just shows you all your freaking games and stuff, what your average frame rates are, like when you're playing them and stuff. It'll go through here and just kind of show you everything, you know, like look at this, like 365 frames a second with AMD's fluid motion frames activated on a settled course of Competizione. And that's another thing, man. You go over here to you go into graphics or whatever, and then you just turn on like your fluid motion frames too. I'm using the beta right now for this right here. So fluid motion frames too, and then you can actually like boost your games. Like look at this, man. Like AC is 365. Avatars, I don't think I did that one with it. You know, 74 for that, 108 on CarX. Some of these I turn it off, like Black Myth Wukong, 127 frames. Black Desert's 221 frames. Deathbound, 240 frames almost. Like this is just crazy amount of frame rate, especially when I'm using it. MX versus ATV Legends at 248 frames. Like you just get so many, like Splinter Cell Blacklist at like 268 frames. Sifu at almost 400 frames for Sifu, man. Like that's crazy. It's crazy fast. 130 frames on The Witcher 3. Wreckfest is giving me 240. WRC 9, I'm getting 357, 354 on WRC 8. 180 frames on Red Dead Redemption 2. Like this is just madness, my friends. You get in here and you start playing with that. But then when you're using like you can just click HyperRX right here, man. You just click that button and boom, it like pulls everything up. It turns all this on. You got like Radeon Boost, Anti-Lag, Fluid Motion Frames, Sharpen Effect, and Radeon Super Resolution. And if the game is like actually optimized for this, it'll turn everything on and it just looks incredible. And you can use fluid motion frames with all DX11 and DX12 games. I got all my screen recording and everything right here. I can do all that. I can change all my settings. I can come down here. I can use HVEC. I can use AV1 encoding, whatever I want. I can set my bit rate to 100. I record everything at 100 bit rate, man. These are like my settings for doing all of that. And then like you save over here and stuff. You can live stream from this. You've got I think over here in gaming, was it gaming? Performance maybe. Yeah, like see, and in performance you can get in here and you can do all of your like if you wanted to get in here and like tune your GPU and do all of the get in here and like overclock it and everything, you just get right in here and boom, you just get in there, overclock everything. Or you can do these right here, just like these little freaking manual, like not manual, but just like quick overclocks or whatever. You can do that. Man, there's so much in here that you can play with. You can do a stress test. And then one of my favorite things is like the display tab. You get in here and you turn on virtual super resolution. I love this feature, virtual super resolution. I can run games at like 4K, 6K, 8K, and then downsample them to 4K or my ultra wide monitor. Over here, my custom color, I can play with all these right here and just set everything up. I usually set this at about 150 and it gives me a nice, good overall color. I like color. I think it looks incredible. So if I make that small and I make this small, it just, look at that color, man. It just pops. it just pops on the OLED. So it's like, yeah, my friends, I get like all these like custom settings in the Adrenaline software that just, it's not like that on NVIDIA. And to me, that type of an experience is more empowering than being able to use ray tracing on a few games, or being able to, you know. See, I bought the 7900 XTX because I didn't want to have to use a lot of upscaling, because I don't necessarily care for it. Like, I don't care for the upscaling. I want to just have, you know, native resolution. I like that. I feel like you get a better overall density and image quality when you just use native resolution. That's why I invested in the 3440 by 1440p ultra wide monitor as well. Because now I can usually push everything I want to play on the 7900 XTX at 3440 by 1440p. Some games, while using virtual super resolution, I can crank those to 3840 by 1620p, which, you know, gives me even a little bit better density. Now, I guess, you know, for the untrained eye, or for most people, you probably wouldn't notice, because native 1440p on a native 1440p screen doesn't look bad at all. But I can kind of see that little extra bit of density when I'm sitting close and I'm looking at the screen. I can see maybe a little bit finer grain texture, or the hair on something might look a little better. And it gets rid of, like, when you downsample, it gets rid of all the jaggies and all the, you know, all the like blur and everything else that would be in your image quality. All the gets rid of a lot of the instability and everything else. So when people are talking about like, oh man, well, FSR does this, and I'm like, dude, I don't even use FSR. I use virtual super resolution, so I get a better image quality, and it looks better than both DLSS or FSR. Like, downsampling is always going to look better than either of those. When you take an image, say you take 1080p and you stretch that out to 4K, you're stretching that image. Like, you're expecting 1 pixel to fill in 4 pixels, or yeah, like 4 pixels. So you take like a little square and you draw four in there, and you're taking one of those and you want it to fill in all 4 of those. So it's going to essentially stretch your picture, but is what DLSS is doing, is kind of like filling in those holes a little bit, but it's still a stretched image that it's working from. So it's not doing as good as, say, taking 8 pixels, like say you take 8 of them and you squish those down to 4, then you get like all of that detail in all of those pixels that just kind of combines, and it just looks denser, richer, more complete. It looks less hollow. It just looks dense. It looks good. I don't know how to really explain it. Like, you kind of have to just see it for yourself. It doesn't look as sharp and crisp as DLSS does, though, on a 4K screen. Even on the monitor, like the visuals look dense. On DLSS at 4K, it looks crisp. And so you're trading these two basic image qualities. One of them for like a dense image versus like a crisp image. And I can see how a lot of people, like, even when I see like 4K on the 4K screen, I'm like, ooh, that looks crisp. But then it doesn't, like, I don't know, man. It doesn't last as long, like the whole overall feeling of like, oh my gosh, this looks incredible. It doesn't last anywhere near as long as it does looking freaking super dense on that 1440p monitor. And that, my friends, is why I chose the 7900 XTX over the 4080 Super. The 4080 Super does good, okay? And you can use DLSR. You can use that, you know, a DSR, dynamic super resolution, on NVIDIA too, to get that denser image quality. But for some reason, man, it just works better on the AMD side. Like, I don't have to turn off DSC on my monitor. I can just use it. I can get in there. I think a combination of like AMD's Fluid Motion Frames 2 or Fluid Motion Frames and virtual super resolution, that kind of just pushed me over the top, because always having the ability to turn on driver level frame generation on any game, To me, that just seemed like a smarter idea. I play with a controller. Like, I use a controller, and in most of the games that I've tested AMD's Fluid Motion Frames 2 in, it's actually a really good experience. Every now and then you'll get a little bit of judder depending on your frame rate before, but if you get in at 70 to 100 frames a second, like, your image quality is going to look great. Like, it's going to look good. Every once in a while, if you're using like motion blur, it'll screw up the motion blur. So turn that off. Make sure motion blur is completely off, because it just screws that up. Film grain and other like chromatic aberration or any of those types of things, turn those all the way off. Make sure those are off, or it really messes with the fluid motion frames. But other than that, like, if you're playing like an open world game, because I play a lot of those, and that's mainly what I've tested Fluid Motion Frames 2 on. It's like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, The Witcher 3, all of these games that are just open world and on that ultra wide monitor. It just looks so good, my friends. Like 240 frames a second on an ultra wide OLED monitor. It looks incredible. And I love the 7900 XTX. It just pushes it and it makes it incredible. I tried with the 4080 Super, and like, it looked incredible too. Like, it really does. It looks good, but I don't know, man. Just something about the AMD experience that kind of just pulled me in. I really do like that open source. I do, and I don't necessarily have a need for upscaling just yet. So DLSS is really not as important to me as just sheer power would be. And like with the 4080 Super and the 7900 XTX, you really don't need DLSS a lot for that. But just having that peace of mind of 24 gigs of VRAM, a 384-bit bus, if for later down the road when games do get more demanding, AMD's Fluid Motion Frames 2, the amazing Adrenaline software, and just being able to utilize virtual super resolution and the color palette that the AMD card has, those are more than enough reasons for me to just, go with the 7900 XTX. And everybody's needs are going to be different, but I'm telling you guys that, hey man, this is what I see in AMD, and this is why I chose AMD to power my channel, to power my gaming, and to, just have fun with, man. You got to look at GPUs as they're like, at least for me, and this may be wrong, man. Maybe I'm looking at them as like they're stopgaps to the next one until you get another one. You never know. You never know. So some people like to make them last a very long time, and I think that the AMD 7900 XTX with the VRAM and the buffer and all of that stuff, that one there's definitely got some freaking longevity to it. Longevity. This card is made to last for a while. So is probably the 7900 XT, the GRE, the 7800 XT. Those are all good cards. The 4070 Super. I bought a Super too, and yeah, man, I kind of just feel like those cards they're gonna be fine, but I feel like I don't know, my friends. I don't know. I kind of feel like, at least for me, I utilize NVIDIA significantly different than a lot of people do, apparently. So, all right, my friends, now you know why I got the AMD 7900 XTX. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one.